Hi, Gloria Lybecker here with Healing You. I'm curious, do you remember what you thought about parenting when you were a young adult? Did you have an opinion about what makes a good parent or how kids should be raised? Did you have any ideas that were different from the way that you were brought up? I remember saying, as a young expectant mother, I'm never going to yell at my kids. I'm going to listen to them and pay attention to them. I'm going to be a good mother. Well, needless to say, I have experienced surprise at my own behavior when I've reacted more harshly than I ever thought I would to my children. How could this happen when I said I would never behave this way? My fierce love for my kids has always been a strong focal point throughout my life. And the intensity of this really strong emotion, it's been an anchor for me to the high road state of mind. And by the high road, I'm referring to our ability to have choice around how we act and our ability to choose our long-term goals for our children's well-being over short-term goals like quiet or ease. This is different from being driven by our emotions or unconscious memories. And it's different from a knee-jerk reaction in service of those short-term goals, which is the low road. Well, I have had a tendency to be catapulted into the low road in situations that I perceive as confusing and stressful. Finding my way in the midst of those moments and continuing to choose my child, continuing to reach out for an attuned connection within the relationship with this other being. Well, that's to trust it's not only possible to connect, but that with faith, when we let go, we find out we are already connected. And this is my life's work. When we feel stressed in relationship with our children, we may experience becoming flooded by intense emotions, such as sadness, fear, or rage. And these emotions can result in inflexibility, which further impairs our ability to think clearly or to maintain an attuned emotional connection within our parent and child relationship. I can remember a good example of this. It was years ago, one morning when I was sitting with Rylan at the breakfast table. And in the midst of sharing what we each wanted to do that day, I was reminded of upcoming plans. And I said something like, Rylan, I've been thinking about when we go to help Dad move the rest of our stuff from Waitsburg. Well, before I even completed my sentence, I saw Rylan's eyes widen, his body stiffened, and his hands flew to cover up his ears as he hollered, I'm not going anywhere, B. Well, upon hearing myself being called a B, my face flushed, my heart began to race, and I felt flooded with an intensity of anger that demanded action be taken now. I swiftly walked over to him and I said with heat, don't you ever call me a B. I am your mother, and I want to be spoken to with kindness and respect. Do you hear me? Oh my gosh. Tears sprang to his eyes as he cringed away from me in fear. He's like, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. He just whimpered. I was horrified in an instant to have stimulated such terror in my child. I shifted my posture and I smoothed my facial expression and my tone, and I reclaimed my ability to reach out to him using transparency and love. And I asked him to please forgive me. And I became so triggered hearing myself being called a name. I just flipped my lid and I reacted with anger. And I showed him the hand gesture that signals that our emotional alarm system has taken control of our actions. And I said, I so much want to be able to respond with love no matter what, especially as your mother. And what do you hear me saying? Well, he answered, you need kindness and respect. And in this moment, I want to acknowledge that Rylan's emotional alarm system was in control, and it was still echoing. What was in him that was echoing was my initial anger. I said yes, and I felt a little relief. And I said, thank you for telling me what you heard. Well, he had quieted, but he still shrank back from my reaching out for touch. So I took another moment to calm myself. I shut my eyes and I took in a deep, calming breath, and then I let it back out slowly, all the while noticing where I felt the breath in my body. I felt renewed as I opened my eyes, and I gazed upon my son then with some tender curiosity. And I said, I imagine it was pretty scary for you when I reacted with anger. Is there anything you want me to hear about what that was like for you? And I asked him that with a quiet, low tone of voice. When our emotional alarm system has taken over, it's taken control, it's very important for the adult involved in the situation to make repairs with the child, because children are not able to regain their emotional balance on their own without support. The part of the brain that would do this is not yet developed. Well, Ronan, he responded by sitting up straight and speaking quickly. Yeah, I am scared. And then horror comes and I have to get mad. And the more horror there is, the more mad I get. And when you get mad, I get more scared and more horror comes and then more mad. You can't get mad. I get too scared. Wow, that was a hugely important moment in our relationship. He had never before given me such a clear picture of his internal world. So to support both of us in our deeper understanding of this clarity, I offered him a reflection of what I'd heard. And I said something like, I'm hearing how scared you feel. And then horror comes and you get mad to feel safe. And then you feel more horror, so you get more mad. And then when you see me get mad, it's just too scary. Is that what you wanted me to hear? He nodded with tears in his eyes. I told him, thank you so much for helping me to understand. No wonder you reacted the way you did. Are you ready for a big hug now? And I held out my arms as an invitation for connection, and he flew into them, giving me a fierce hug. I asked him to please forgive me. I said, I will do my best to remember your fear and respond with love and curiosity. I want to acknowledge that many children who are highly sensitive have little access to their sense of safety. They're living with nervous systems that are constantly on alert, that regularly react to life experiences with the perception of danger or life threat, while others might perceive the very same life experiences as no big deal. Moving to a new house is a very significant change for a child, and it often involves the need for extra support to grieve their sense of loss. When Rylan was triggered, hearing move the rest of our stuff, his system was flooded with the emotion of grief so strongly he was unable to hold it, let alone make any sense of it. So in addition, my perception of my son's behavior initiated an automatic flooding of implicit memories within me, which quickly shifted my state of mind. And although I didn't know it at the time, because of my own unresolved and leftover issues around being called names, I was very vulnerable to shifting into that low road state of mind without the feeling or conscious awareness that I was actually recalling anything. So such shifts can be experienced as an alarmed aloneness, a frozen, foggy state of mind, or as a sudden onset of agitation and explosive rage. It was actually several weeks after this incident, while receiving support to reclaim my traumatized teenage self, that this story of Rylan and our move fell fully into place. Recalling a moment when I had received horrific verbal abuse, I held that younger self, with compassion and tenderness, and in the process experienced a wave of understanding about why name calling took me into a very low road. So making sense of the triggers and how they stir up particular emotional reactions is critical to freeing ourselves from the stuck pattern of automatic disconnection. As parents, creating places where we're held with compassionate support as we reflect on our own lives and move from self-judgment to self-acceptance. That's key to experience a new sense of inner clarity and response flexibility in our relationships. Thanks for being on this journey with me today. Healing you.